On this video, oh, who am I kidding? You know why you're here, let's get on with it. Hey folks, I'm Luke Hector from the Broken Meeple, and if you're new to this channel then stay tuned for a list of great games over the upcoming weeks, although you might want to jump one episode back. Well, we started with the 100 to 91 list last time and you blew me away with the views that you gave me on that video. I mean, it goes to show I really need to get back to top 10 lists at some point. Clearly it's what you want to see. And don't worry, that will happen once the top 100 is done. I'm going to make a huge push to put out lots of top 10 lists, you know, in favour of reviews rather, because I've done a lot of reviews lately and I'm doing other variety content. I kind of want to carry on doing the variety content and maybe taper the reviews down and maybe do more of them in live streams, 30 minutes, or you know, maybe like a podcast reviews, that kind of thing, and just maybe be a bit more picky and choosy with my review videos. But yeah, you guys kind of blew me away with the top 100 feedback last week, so certainly I want to get these out and get back to good old fun top 10 lists. So today, I'm having to bring out my iPad this time because the other one's on charge, and this one has seen a fair share of knocks. No kidding, this is an iPad 2. I think it's like over a decade and a half old or something at this point. I am surprised it even still works with the amount of punishment I've thrown at it. Literally, all I use it for is to watch YouTube, and that's it. But now it's got a host Google Drive, so I can actually see my list. So we're going through we're going for 90 to 81 today, and there's not a huge amount of new content on this one. One game has returned to the list after previously falling off, and there is one new game to the list, which I must admit has the potential to start rising up again if time goes on. We shall see, but I'm going to wait for more expansion modules. So without further ado, let's get cracking.
Get on with it!
My number 90 has dropped 27 places from 63, and it's on the way out, I must admit. Not necessarily out of the way of the collection, but certainly out of the way of the top 100, and that's just because it never gets played. And that has a problem with some of these games, and that is XCOM the board game. XCOM is a great fun game. It's a real-time game, so you take control of a role like a scientist or the military leader or the commander, much like the XCOM computer games, and you try and beat off the alien forces as they try to invade your base, invade the continents with spaceships, all sorts of cool stuff like that. But it's real-time, so each of you has a prescribed role, and when it's your turn via the app that controls you, you have to basically get on with it and get on with your role and working together as a team. It's a great fun game when it ever gets played. And that's the problem. It's not really suitable for game cafe material because, well, you're generating a lot of noise. So I could play it solo at home, but then have you ever tried playing XCOM solo? It's a bit tough to try and control 4 roles by yourself. So I need to get people round, and even during COVID, that's impossible, but even outside of COVID, that was pretty difficult to get people round here to play XCOM specifically. So it's just not hitting the table, and it is going to cause problems for this in the long run, but I still really enjoy the game when it does get played. But yeah, it's dropped 27 places now. It could be out of the top 100 next year at this rate, so we'll have to see. It's definitely falling, but you know, I must admit, Eric Lang doesn't feature on my top 100 that much. He's got one game coming up later, and I think that's pretty much it from Eric Lang. The rest of his have never made my list, but I do enjoy XCOM. You know, I love the video games. I played both video games, XCOM 1 and 2. Suggest you really get to grips with them if you like that kind of tactile, squad-based movement game. I mean, it can be unfair as all get out at times. You know, it's like, I've got 99% chance to hit. Oh, I missed, and I'm literally shooting a shotgun at a guy here. It's like, come on, how do you miss? But they are good fun. And the board game as well. Good fun, good tension, good production. It's just, I just wish I could get it played more. My number 89 has actually risen a few places, which is kind of odd. Possibly, I don't know, I've played it once or twice recently, and I suppose it has kind of solidified itself around here, but we'll see how long this one sticks around, and that is Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. There's other deduction games that I prefer at the moment. You'll see more of them on the list as we go on, but I still like Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. I play this one entirely solo. As much as it probably does benefit from a group at times, because there's a lot of information to do, this is one of those ones where I've got like a long evening planned. You know, I've got nothing else to do. I'm just going to sit down and go through a whole deduction case by myself, and these cases need a bit of effort. You are trying to solve a typical murder mystery or heist mystery, you know, typical Sherlock Holmes fare, but you're also trying to, like, beat Sherlock Holmes at his own game, although that is frankly impossible. He's a bit of a he's a bit of a git, really. It's like, he's kind of like constantly like, I've solved this mystery, and then Sherlock Holmes comes in at the end. It's like, yes, well, I solved it in 2 minutes by going to this place first and then gaining clairvoyance, which allowed me to go to this location. It's like, yeah, do yourself a favour, Sherlock, okay?
Dear God, what is it like in your funny little brains? It must be so boring.
We're not exactly, you know, as boffins as you, but throughout this game, you are reading newspaper articles, you know, an entire newspaper spread, paragraphs from a book. You have a huge map with all the numbers on it, a bit like Choose Your Own Adventure, where you can decide, right, I'm going to go to, I don't know, Imperial Street, and let's read this paragraph. Okay, there's a lead, or it's a red herring. You've got a whole phone address book of contacts from the Sherlock Holmes lore that you can call upon, and some of them are completely irrelevant, some of them are relevant, you don't necessarily know, and you've got to try and piece this case together. It's a great, good, fun deduction game, but my god, is it a brain burner. And I talk about other deduction games being those as well, but this one is just for the sheer wealth of information you have to read through. It is almost a reading simulator at times, but you get a good story, you get a good challenge, and you get a cool kind of deduction game. I'm nearly done with the cases that I've got in my current box, and I'll probably stick with that, to be honest, because there's a lot more cases out there. I mean, the variety's off the charts, but it's trying to find the time to play this one. So I'm quite surprised it's risen a few places. I was expecting this one to drop further, maybe even leave the top 100, but still a good fun game. Again, it's just a case of getting it to the table, because it does require quite a commitment for your evening to be able to do it, not to mention some good brain power, which half the time I'm usually half asleep, which kind of gets in the way. But otherwise, a good fun deduction game, Sherlock. My number 88 has risen a few places as well, from about 94, I believe. I think around this area of the top 100 list, a few of these games are rising slightly because they're trying to leave the top 100, but then I go, nah, these are still pretty good, but then other games have fallen out of the top 100 to make up for it. So there's a bit of juggle around at this point, and that is the good old classic. I mean, people think it's cool to rag on this game. They think like, oh, this is rubbish now. Nobody likes to play this game anymore. It's dated, you know, all the cult and the new people. I'm sorry. I still enjoy Catan. What's wrong with Catan? It's a decent, light Euro game, building up your roads and buildings on an island, which changes every game, getting resources, trading with other players, and that's probably the biggest kick I get out of it, that trading aspect. It's a Euro game with player interaction. Why is that such a bad thing? I know a lot of Euro gamers, like, you know, repel at the sight of interaction. No, everything's got to be solitaire or multiplayer solitaire. And granted, there's a fair few Euros I enjoy which are pretty much multiplayer solitaire. But I do like to be able to interact with other players at times, okay? And not necessarily in a punch you in the face type of way. This is just a cool, light trading game. Now granted, I'll still play it in its original form, but it wouldn't be this high if I did. I have it with seafarers and some elements of traders and barbarians, the fishermen and the harbour masters. You know, I use that with seafarers, and that creates my quintessential Catan game. I've tried the spin-offs, I've tried the Game of Thrones, the Incas, I think one or two others I've tried as well, and it's like, they're okay, but not massive fans. Not tried those historical ones though, what do you call that, the Catan Europe and Catan Americas, I haven't tried them, but I would gladly give them a go. But honestly, I just think I found the quintessential niche, you know, Catan, seafarers, perfect. With maybe one or two extra modules thrown in for good measure, but you know, Catan and seafarers, that's my good my good balance of simplicity versus enjoyment. I still enjoy this game. Okay, it's not my favourite game ever, but I just don't get on this whole craze of we hate Catan, it's dated. It's like, it's still fun. When did it suddenly get bad? The game doesn't suddenly just go from good to horrible, you know. I can think of a few games that, no, actually, no, I can't. Games start off good or they start off bad. That's usually the way it is. But yeah, honestly, I don't get this whole, like, hatred thing. I like Catan. It's number 88. Deal with it. My number 88 has dropped 27 places. This is quite a big drop, and this is from Matthew Dunstan and Space Cowboys. This game is good fun. Really do enjoy it. Remember, I like all games on my top 100, but this has dropped a bit, mainly because it really could use an expansion, and they never made one, and I don't get why. It's got good variety in the box, but once you see all that, you kind of want more, and this could really do with a good shake-up, or maybe a second edition. That'd be really good. Second edition with more content, and that is Elysium. Elysium is a really tense, medium weight Euro game where you are collecting cards almost in a sense Splendor style from a middle tableau. All you need to have in order to pay for a card is the colour pillars in front of you. When you get the cards, you build them up in a tableau, collect sets, 1, 2, 3, or the 3 of a certain colour, and all these cards have different abilities depending on whether you keep them in front of your, I forget the terminology, but basically you've got a little platform, and if they're above it, then you get the cool abilities, but you don't score for them until they go underneath. It's that, there's several games I like, Valley of the Kings is another one. It's a similar idea where you want, how long do you use the card for before you need to actually start scoring it? It's a cool mechanic. But with this, oh, it's tense. Those 4 pillars, everybody has them. And you've got to pick 3 cards and 1 like turn order card or bonus card at the end. You have to pick all 4 of them in the round. And the only way you can afford a card is if you have the pillars in front of you. But every time you take something, you have to get rid of one of your pillars. Any pillar, but you got to get rid of one. So your choices diminish as the round goes on. And other players are probably taking the cards that you're going to take, and you don't want to be left with nothing or a wasted turn. It is super tense, but in a decent, fun way. You know there's the risk that somebody will take what you need. You know it's there, and you've got to make those hard choices of, oh no, do I need that card, but I really need the bonus tile more. And then what pillar do I get rid of? Well, if I get rid of the red, I can't get those. That should be fine. Maybe I'll get rid of the green because the other players can't afford a green either, so that's a safety one, but I don't know what to do. Oh, super tense. Play this with 4 players and I'm guaranteed there could be fist flying because you're like, how dare you take my card. But it's really cool. I mean, the production's decent enough. I like the little pillars. It looks cool on the table. The artwork's really good. This is so crying out for an expansion or a second edition. Seriously, Matthew, why did you never do one? I need answers. This one is crying for Elysium 2.0 because it is a good, fun game. But the variety only lasts so long, that's why it's dropped a few places, but hopefully this will still settle around in the bottom of my top 100 because I do like to bring this game out every now and again, and I will certainly campaign for a 2.0 at some stage. Elysium. My number 86 has dropped a fair whack, 19 odd places from 67. Probably going to solidify around this point. Still enjoy it, just hasn't hit the table in a while, although someone was playing it at my club the other week and I was like, oh, I almost wish I was in that game. But then I was showing off viticulture, so, which one was I going to pick? This is 5 Tribes. I've already mentioned Yamatai, and some people are not big fans of Yamatai, which is fine. If you're not a big fan of it, that's okay. Most of you will probably like 5 Tribes instead, and that's cool. I like 5 Tribes better than Yamatai. It's a really cool Mancala game. You are picking up coloured meeples, depositing them around boards, dropping them out, and then as soon as you get, like when you drop the last meeple, you collect all of a single colour and trigger some ability based on what colour tribe you picked up. All the while you're trying to claim territories on the board, get cards, set collection, score points, kill off other meeples, get genies. There's a few little cool things that you're doing, but I just like the variety in all the different tribes that you have. Yeah, we've kind of got past the point where it's like, oh, it's 5 tribes, but there's only 4 players. And now there's 6 tribes, but there's still only 4 players. It's like, well, it's a bit of a crazy nut job when it comes to these player counts and the name of the game. But seriously, chances are I don't want to play this with 4 players anyway. It just takes too long with the analysis paralysis. But as a 2 or 3 player game, this game really shines. It just looks gorgeous on the board. The rules themselves are not particularly complex. It's just the fact that you have a lot to think about on your turn. Although this diminishes as the game goes on as options become more and more limited. I don't try to overthink each choice. I try to think, oh, that one looks pretty good, and then I go with it, because if I stand there trying to think of 7 different options I could pick on, you'll be there all day. And that is the bigger flaw of the game, analysis paralysis prone. But I get a really good kick out of just that tense thinking, one of those games where I'm not going to say it's low complexity, high depth, because it's still got a fair amount you got to learn. You got to learn 5-6 tribes worth of abilities. I've got expansions in it, and then that adds more rules. But as a general game, it's just good fun. And after seeing them play it the other week, I kind of want to get it back to the table myself, actually. I haven't actually tried. I hear there's a solo mode for it. I think I downloaded it, but never actually played it. I need to give that one a try. Maybe that would be a good one for a solo play at some point. But I'm getting sidetracked. 5 Tribes, still really good Euro game. Bruno Cafala does it again. I mean, he's on this list a fair few times, let's just say, and he makes really good games. So 5 Tribes is another one. Right, now we're going to get on to something a little bit more interesting. 85 has returned to the list. It previously fell off. It has been on the list before. It just keeps kind of jumping up and down. I sometimes think, yeah, I'm not too fussed with this game, but then I go, oh, actually, I remember why I like it. And then I go, well, I like other games better, and then this jumps up again. I think this one is actually now going to stay in the top 100 because I've realized now properly, yeah, there's a reason I really enjoy this game and want to bring it out. And it's currently missing off the shelf because it's in my game bag downstairs, and that is San Juan. San Juan is my answer to Puerto Rico. Look, if you love Puerto Rico, fine. I find it fine. It's okay. I don't like the whole, like, Puerto Rico shark thing, that if you're good at this game, you hate being next to the person who's like a complete noob, and the game does drag on a bit, but the game is still fun enough. But San Juan is just better. I'm sorry, it is just better. It's the card game version of Puerto Rico. It still has that cool mechanic of choosing a role, and depending on whether you pick the role or someone else does, determines what bonus you get for it. So I might know I want to build this round, but I'm thinking, well, so-and-so is going to build. I don't need the discount, so why don't I just wait for him to build while I go and do this with a bonus? And sometimes you might think, well, I'm going to do that, and then they'll do this, and then no one does it. And it's like, oh, I missed out on building this round. That's not good. And sometimes you just want to hunt down that bonus. It's like, I want to sell off more than just one good this round, so I'm going to trade this extra one. It's really a cool, fun mechanic. But San Juan speeds the whole thing up by basically just making the deck of cards everything. It's your buildings, it's your money, it's your goods that you sell and trade off. So you're pretty much just going through this deck of cards like super fast, drawing cards and thinking, I could build this one, but then I need to pay for this building, and it's that multi-use card thing. I love it in games. I've got to decide whether this is going to be used to pay for something or I'm going to build it. And cards are pretty scarce half the time unless you've got a really good engine going with producing and selling goods. So you have to really make that hard decision of, I really want both of these buildings, but do I save up and get both, or do I just build this one and say, oh well, never mind, I'll get it later? And you can rush to 12 buildings or try and build up some high value ones over time. There's other ways to score with certain buildings that you can tuck cards under or gain, extra goods. It's just a really good fun game, but it is so simple. I mean, Puerto Rico, you've got to explain all these rules, you've got to get the hang of the mechanics, it's certainly a much more involved game. This one is like, hey, do you want that feel of Puerto Rico, but I can do it in like 45 minutes? Here you go, here's San Juan. So simple. It's a really good, fun game, and I've got the expansion buildings, whatever they're called. It's the second edition, so it came with it included. So there's a good amount of variety in the game. I wouldn't say no to another expansion, but of course that's never going to happen at this point. But yeah, I'm sorry. If you like Puerto Rico, fine, but I just prefer San Juan. It's a great game. It fell off the top 100. I've now played it recently quite a few times with people at my club. They've gotten into it and I'm just like, yeah, I remember why it was I liked about it now. And sometimes you just need to play a game again to remind yourself why it was that you liked it. Because not every game is on the tip of your mind at all times. You sometimes have to go, there's a reason I enjoy this game. Hang on, let's play. Haha, then it's a good feeling. It's almost like discovering the game again for the first time. And I'm glad to see it back on the top 100, and hopefully it's here to stay. And now 84 now, here's the other interesting one for this list, the new entry. Yes, and this is the third new entry on the list. We had On Mars and Broom Service last time. This is the only new entry on this list, the 10. And this is a deck builder that a friend of mine had constantly been telling me, oh, you got to try this deck builder out, Luke. You love deck builders, go for it. And it's like, I don't know, it's from Queen. I'm not sure if I go for it, because I don't tend to go for a lot of Queen game stuff. They're okay games, I just find them a bit dry and a little bit standard. But I thought, alright, I'll give it a try. Bought it at Essen with an expansion module. Took me ages to get it out of its shrink wrap. I mean, this was on my shelf of shame for a long time before I finally went, come on, sit down and play it.
Many months later.
Really didn't take me long to learn the rules. I mean, it's a pretty simple deck builder. But when I played it, I realized, yeah, I'm missing out on something good here. This is nice, and this is Runestones. Runestones is definitely going to be one of those underrated gems, I think, in my opinion. Like, barely anyone would have heard of it, or a lot of people won't have tried it. But if you like deck builders, give this one a go. It's another one of those pure deck builders. Again, pure deck building, not all the stapled stuff on the side. And basically the way it is, it's pretty simple dry mechanics. You're collecting artifacts, you're collecting gems to buy artifacts in order to score points. Okay, pretty standard. I mean, it's like pretty much as much theme as Res Arcana had. But with this one, you've got to, how many different artifacts you collect of the different colours will score you more points. And it's like, well, okay, why don't I just wait until that? But every time you gain an artifact, when you convert artifacts into points, you also take a runestone, which gives you a special ability for the whole game. So you're deciding, well, if I go slow, I get more points, but then I don't get so many cool abilities. But if I go really fast, I get less points converting and converting and converting, but I'll have a full tableau of all these cool abilities, and then I'll start pushing forward. That already is fun. But the other thing, on top of its pretty simple rules, I mean, you're pretty much choosing one of 3 actions a turn and that's it, is that when you play cards in your hand, you play 2 cards at a time. You resolve both abilities, and we're talking simple abilities here, like collect gems, convert to this, draw a card. You know, they're pretty standard. We're not talking realms of text, it's all iconography, and artwork's pretty sweet as well. But when you play the 2 cards, the one with the highest number on it, because they're all numbered cards, gets trashed out of your deck. So if it's a starter card, it's out of the game, and if it's a communal card that you've bought, it goes back in the communal deck. So you have to decide, okay, well I'm playing 2 cards here and I really like these abilities, but hang on a minute, I'm going to lose this card. Do I want to lose this card? Maybe I should play this instead so that it's higher number and that goes rather than this. Not the most like brain burning of decisions, but it's different. I like innovation in games, I like something unique, and this hasn't been done before. At least I don't think it has. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I'd like to know. But honestly, I looked at this and thought, wow, this is simple, but it's just a neat little twist. And I like these neat little twists. It's simple to play, looks good on the table, okay, it's dry as a bone. The little expansion, I've got, what's it called? Oh, I forget what it's called. It's got like little horror creatures. It's something like night, something, I don't know. But basically it throws in some very easy mechanics and banshee cards and that do cool stuff. And then there's another module coming out later. I mean, they call them Queenie modules or whatever. You know what Queen games are like. It's like, here's my game and then here's module 1 to 1,000,000. But they're great and I can't wait to expand this game further as long as I don't make it overly complicated. But yeah, thanks to my mate Russell for that one. I mean, you know, it's good to take some other people's advice every now and again and go, you know what, Luke, no, you really got to try this game. Try it. I'm glad I have, because it sits down there and it's going to sit there for some time. Really enjoying this one, Runestones. My number 83 has dropped 19 places. It's still going to hang strong because I still enjoy this one. And we're still on the deck builder front, actually. And we've got 2 deck builders here, and then we're going to move on to dice in a minute. But deck building, love the genre. Love it when it's the whole game. Not when it's stapled onto a game. You know, we've heard me ranting on and on about Great Western Trail and a few other games I don't like. You know, I want deck building to be the focus, not just a side thing. And with this one, this was the purest of deck builders. The first deck builder, at least I think it was, the first one that basically said, oi, deck building's here to stay, guys. We gotta play this stuff. This is deck building, this is amazing. Dominion. It's still good fun. I've got 3 expansions, maybe 4 I think, 3 big and a small one in my box in the other room. It's in a crate, doesn't necessarily need a full-on crate, but it's enough. And it's got enough cards for my liking. Some people have gone mad and collected every single Dominion expansion. And it's like, wow, when do you get the chance to play them all? But for me, I've got 3.5 expansions or something like that, and I'm good. It's got more than enough content for me. But I still like the game. Very simple. Play your cards, discard your hand, draw up, do it again, rinse, repeat, collect cards from the middle from a set number of 10, hence the games have always got different variety and combos you can create, and you're just getting point cards, and it's pretty standard. It's a dry deck builder, but it's so fast. You play this with anybody who APs, and you shouldn't be playing Dominion really, but with those who know what they're doing, and I don't mean experts, I mean just people who have played the game, you know, the turns are like, you know, like really quick. And you can get through a game in 45 minutes without too much trouble. You know, an hour tops, but ideally around 45 minutes. Maybe if you use some of the more weirder cards, it could take closer to an hour. But even say an hour is not that bad for a game, really, in my opinion. It's a good ideal length. And with this one, just the sheer amount of variety it has, and the fact that it is a pure, like, bread and butter deck builder game. I enjoy the mechanic, and because it's the whole focus here, I don't have to think, well hang on, let me just do this bit of deck building. Right, now let's see, let me move on this map, and then level up these tracks, and then I also need to do this Euro mechanic here, worker placement, fight. It's like, no, just give me deck building. That's all you gotta do. And yeah, it's fallen a bit, just hasn't hit the table as much lately, although I did play it in a tournament a while back. It was a friendly tournament. We had to play 7 different games in our local cafe. Dominion was one of them. I think I came second. I came second to somebody who we let run away too much with Parks. So his whole deck was like about this big, full of green cards. It's like, oh yeah, kind of messed up there. But, you know, it was a good, fun game, and it was good to get it out again. I won the tournament in the end, though, so haha. You know, try and beat me at Seven Wonders Duel, how dare you. But it was a really good fun time. Dominion's always been a good fun game. It's not dying out for me anytime soon. Cult of the Old? Who knows? Maybe I am. But I like new games as well, but I'm not gonna just suddenly kick out old games because new ones arrived. I like to think I'm a man of balance. Yeah, a bit of old, a bit of new, a bit of column A, a bit of column B. So Dominion, moving on. Right, now we're moving on to dice games. And this, well, when I say dice games, I'm more talking about dice placement or manipulating dice as opposed to like a Kin of Tokyo roll dice and do stuff game. This one's only shifted one spot. I think it's gone down one place. Oh, whoopee-doo, whatever. It's still remaining quite steady, and I played this the other week actually, so it's kind of fresh on my mind, and that is an underrated game called Pioneer Days. Pioneer Days is basically the Oregon Trail in a dice game, except no one dies of dysentery. They might die of 4 other things, but not dysentery. Here, it's a dice worker placement. Is it dice? No, it's a dice drafting game, not worker placement. The idea, I said it was fresh on my mind, but the idea with this one is that you are going to these villages and doing favors in order to get points, and these favors might be trade wood, gold, cattle, medicine, whatever. But the idea is that you have a wagon with some people, you know, by the end of the game. You start off with just yourself and a big or small wagon, some other starting resources and a player ability. But what happens is that these dice are drawn from a bag of different colors, custom dice, and you draft one in turn. The dice will have an ability on it that you can trigger, and based on which one you pick will give you a certain amount of money, or recruit a certain townsfolk, which is like an ability and scoring opportunities, or perform a specific action like gain wood, gain equipment, gain medicine. But the twist with this is that you've got these 4 tracks, disaster tracks, and as you take the dice, the one that is left, and I love this in dice drafting games, the one with the sort of mechanic where the one that is left causes something to happen, so it's an added decision you've got to make, but the one that is left levels up the track for that particular disaster. Famine, raids, storms, that kind of thing, and each one does something negative on every player in the game. So you might deliberately leave a dice behind if you're the last one picking, just to make the disasters trigger for other players that you know it's going to hurt them. And they're going to happen. You can't stop it. They might only happen a few times in the game, they might happen like every which way but loose, depending on what people take dice-wise, and you just have to prepare for them. Do I take the hit? Do I go like, you know what, I'm going to take the hit on this one, I'm going to fight a battle elsewhere? Or do you spend time mitigating the disaster? So it's like, oh, that disaster's coming up, but I better collect this for it, but then would I be better off just gaining points and doing a favour and just taking that hit on the gin? Maybe I can delay it long enough. It's just a nice little extra bit of thinking that you've got to do. But the game itself, pretty straightforward. Draft the dice, see what happens with disasters, do it again, visit the village, rinse repeat for another, I think, 3 rounds or so, and the game is done. The only thing that has kept it from rising higher though, is the fact that it does drag a little bit. When I say drag, I mean that it kind of outstays its welcome. It really benefits, I think, from being like a 75-minute game, about an hour and a quarter. But I've had games of this go longer because some people do AP a bit too much over the dice, and that can have a bit of a negative effect. And then, but it's not like you have to think too far ahead because you don't know what dice are going to come up next round. So I don't get why people AP over it, but I guess it's because it's something different. They've not seen this type of thing before, but I really get a kick out of Pioneer Days. And have I mentioned the other one yet? No, not yet. That one's coming up soon, so I'll hold that one for... Actually, is it? Yeah. Oh, it's coming up, but not till next week. So, well, next week, next episode. So I'm going to hold off that one, but for now, Pioneer Days, good, solid. Check it out if dice drafting is your thing. And finally for this episode, my number 81 had dropped 13 places. It could rise back up though, mainly because I've recently upgraded this version. In fact, little treat, why don't I get it out? This one has, let's see, it's a dice game where you are drafting a D&D character. But I've recently expanded this one. Here we go, Role Player. This one is a really cool game where you are, as I say, building a D&D character. You take these dice from a row and you try and build up your stats, strength, dexterity. But as you put each dice in, it triggers certain abilities. Different color dice are needed in order to gain you points at the end of the game by fulfilling your backstory and stuff. I mean, the theme is there, but it's abstracted down to a pretty high level. But this one though, I've expanded with Fiends and Familiars, and I've yet to play it with Fiends and Familiars. So maybe when I add that in, it will go up in my rankings. But it has recently had a nice addition of, you know, shall we say, pimpage? You probably can't see it too well in there, but that is a folded space insert, which fits very nicely in this box. I'm doing the folded space stuff at the moment, and you will see this insert going up some point in September. I've still got another one to edit on top of this one, so you'll see it eventually, but that's something for you to look forward to. But in this game, it's just, I think the theme just comes out a lot more for me, because I'm very nostalgic over my days when I used to RPG in D&D campaigns. It was good fun as a teenager. Maybe in my early 20s I did a bit of it. Nowadays, not so much, haven't got the time. But, well, not so much, not at all. Have not got the time to do RPGs. But this role player is just a good simple game where you collect the dice, you shop in a market to get equipment and items and character traits, so you can end up creating some weird misfit character that you probably never would create in an actual D&D game. But because people I play it with were familiar with the system, we get more of an interesting experience from just making references and jokes about D&D while we played it. And when I've got this incredibly poor, feeble little strength 4 little gnome character, but with supreme charisma, you know, completely unlike most warrior gnomes you would find, and everyone's poking fun at each other's characters, and you just watch your character unfold, and it's kind of like telling a story, but it's more if anything, part of a lot of RPGs, some of the most fun I get out of an RPG is actually creating the character and trying to come up with a decent, you know, backstory and stats, and trying to think, oh yeah, this character would be cool in a cool situation. Well, that's basically what this game is. You do it with dice, you get the items, and you create said character. Except now you get to fight monsters and a big baddie and fiends and familiars. You get to have little minions and animal companions and stuff. It looks really cool. I just need to get it to the table again in order to try out all the expansions, particularly in solo mode, because I've actually only played this multiplayer. I really do need to do maybe a solo play of this on the channel. We'll see. Let me know if you want to see that, but that could be good actually, getting all of the content out for a solo learning game again. Yeah, let me know in the comments. Do you want to see that, guys? But yeah, my 81 role player. So that's it for another selection of 10 games from my top 100. Next episode, we're going to have 3 new games hitting the top 100 and a few heavy games in there as well, one of which I wouldn't be surprised if it was in people's top 5 games of all time, but I will give you my reasons as to why it's not in my top 5, but it's still in my top 100. I still really love the game. So yeah, all good fun. I'll leave you with the channel promotion, and I'll see you on the next episode. I hope you've been enjoying the content on the Broken Meeple to date, but I'm not the only channel out there who's producing video content and deserves your support. Please check out this channel and see if it's one for you.
Hi everybody, and welcome back to the Nerd Shelves.
To the Nerd Shelves. To the Nerd Shelves.
To the Nerd Shelves.
My name's Michael Brookhart.
I'm Judy.
I'm Michael.
Today, we're taking a look at...
We are going to be looking at board games. Board games. So many board games.
So, join me at the table.
Come join me at the table.
Join me at the table. Let's not waste any more time, and I'll meet you at the table.
So that's it from me on this episode. If you like what you see and have earned your subscription, then please click the avatar in the center of the screen. Alternatively, you can check out the previous episode in my top 100, or just check out my recent review on Small World of Warcraft. Until next time, remember, it's only a game.